So the other day I asked you guys to give me some NBA questions that I could answer that weren't 2K related, just so I could show you guys that I actually have some basketball knowledge, and that all the comments saying you must not watch basketball, things like that, really, it's not true, guys. I watch a ton of basketball. My knowledge isn't just from 2K, obviously, if you guys didn't know. Also, write about the Timberwolves. You can find that on Twitter. It's over at awolfamongwolves.com. But yeah, I watch basketball. I feel like I know what I'm talking about. Our takes might not always agree. Doesn't mean I don't watch basketball. But I want to answer some of you guys' burning questions and see what you guys think about my opinions. So question number 1 comes from Quasi, and he asked, who is the GOAT? Now, this is a hard question for me to answer. I didn't see Jordan play live in real life at all. I've seen most of LeBron's career. I didn't start watching right away because I was 4. It's hard for me to pick, dude. I think they're in the same tier, to be honest. I don't know. You can swing me either way. But yeah, I think it's so close that I can't really make a decision on that. So I guess we're gonna just have to call them 1A and 1B. That's what I have to do for now. We'll see what happens. I think that you can make a case for Jordan. You can make a case for LeBron. You could maybe even make a case for people way back that we don't even think about. It's all subjective in the end, and we're never going to have a clear answer about it. So some people also threw out a bunch of questions. So Quasi threw out a bunch. I'm going to pick some of them. I'm not going to answer all of them, but I'm going to pick some of the ones he asked, and then other people had multiple too. I'm going to look at those, but I'm not going to answer every single question. But his next one was, do you think Klay Thompson can ever be the first scoring option for Golden State? I don't think so. I think he could be the number 1 scoring option, but I don't think they'd be a championship level team if he was the number 1 scoring option. That's just not Klay's game. He can score points, but he needs to be set up to do that. And, I'm not saying he could never really lead a team, but I don't think he ever should have to, because that's not his role. He's not that guy. He doesn't take you off the dribble. He's not taking you off the bounce. He's a spot-up shooter, and he does things really well in his role. He's become basically a borderline superstar by my definition. And I don't know. He's really good. Klay Thompson is a really good player. But could he ever be the scoring option on a championship-level team? I would say no. Also, his next question was, do I think that Zion Williamson is overrated? And my answer to that is we don't know yet. Zion Williamson got a ton of hype coming out of high school and college. And from what we've seen in his short stint in the NBA so far, he's looked good. Is he the next LeBron? No, he's not the next LeBron. Nobody's the next LeBron. He's the only Zion, the Zion Williamson. And that's really all he can be. Whatever he turns out to be is going to be really good. I don't think he's overrated. If we're going to get really specific about it, I think it's too early to tell, but I think he will be a really, really good player. And he has potential to be a top 5 player in the league, if he stays healthy, which is a big concern for him. And then also, if he reaches his max potential. And I think he could possibly become an okay shooter at some point. And if that happens, then that would really just elevate his game to a whole nother level. But I wouldn't say he's overrated. I wouldn't really say he's underrated. He's not even really rated yet because, he's just hasn't been in the league that long. People might overreact to little things that happen in the short span that he's had, and, putting him in the top 50 players in the NBA already. Is that fair? I don't really know. To have to sit down and do it. That part may be a little overrated before he ever played a game, but how can you rate this guy, man? He's barely played. Another question by the same person. Who's the best center in the league? My opinion, and so let's go back. Let's go back to the regular season. My opinion was Karl Anthony Towns was the best player in the league. You might want to call that a little bit of, hometown bias, a little bit of favoritism, whatever, because he plays for my favorite team, whatever. Nobody's scoring the ball like Cat does. Cat's still an elite rebounder. And as much as people hate to admit it, Cat is an average defender. And the problem with Cat's defense is he's too often having to make up for what other people are doing on the court. So, his power forward hasn't been good defensively. So he has to constantly, in his mind, think about, I have to cover for that guy, and then he can get lost sometimes. If he has to focus just on one guy, he's actually a solid rim protector. We'll see if they can get a defensive scheme that fits him a little bit better, kind of like the Nuggets did with Jokic. And I think Cat could be an average to above average defender in the league, especially if he has a solid power forward next to him. And you might argue that Robert Covington is a good defender. Yes, He was a good wing defender at the 3. Post-injury Covington playing the 4, undersized, not a good defender to have next to Karl Anthony Towns. But now that the playoffs came about and we saw Nikola Jokic lead his team, he had a really good playoff run, I could be leaning to have Jokic as the best center in the league. I don't think that Joel Embiid has a case, and then you throw in his health and he really doesn't have a case. The guy cannot stay healthy, and I just don't see him as one of those top 2 centers. I think it's Kat and I think it's Jokic. And I'm kind of flipping them back and forth, to be honest with you. Jokic, like I said, a tremendous passer, a decent shooter, really, really good court vision. Defensively, he is an average defender, but maybe slightly above average defender. They put him in a system, in a role that works to his defensive strengths and kind of limits his defensive weaknesses, and I think that's something that's super important when you're talking about someone like Jokic, who isn't the most athletic or fastest rim protector in the league. But yeah, Jokic had a great playoff run, and it's hard to discredit that, so he might have to jump Kat here. But don't be surprised, Kat comes back and all of a sudden people are thinking about him as the number 1 center in the league next year, because the dude is so talented. If everything clicks, if the Timberwolves are clicking right, if the system works, dude, watch out for Kat. That's all I got to say. All right, and then some of your guys' questions were trivia questions. It's not really my point for posting this, so I'm not going to be answering those. But vlogging with Adve, I think, he had 2 trades that he wants me to see if I would accept. The first one is the Rockets get Gordon Hayward and the Celtics receive Robert Covington and Eric Gordon. I don't love this trade for either team, really. I don't see where Gordon Hayward fits in on the Rockets. I don't know what the Rockets system's going to look like next year. And then on the Celtics side, I think Gordon Hayward does some things that open up the door more than Robert Covington would for them. I don't think they really need Robert Covington's defense when they have Smart, Brown, and Tatum. And Eric Gordon, just an overpaid contract. I don't really see the draw there. I don't think they really have a spot for him in their rotation. So I just don't really get this trade for either team, to be honest with you. And the second trade is the Rockets receive Christian Wood, and the Pistons are receiving Eric Gordon, Daniel House, a first and a second. I like this for the Rockets, thinking about getting a big man that can still shoot the ball, and he's one of those big men that's seen his stock in the NBA rise. He's probably going to get a nice bag when he hits free agency and everything. Christian Wood's a nice player. Obviously, though, the Pistons, I think he's a free agent this summer, this free agency, so I think he would have to be re-signed and then traded. But for the Pistons, Eric Gordon, Daniel House, they're not it. The first, what first? Rockets first is going to be late 20s, maybe mid 20s, not really worth it. And then a second round pick, meh. Rockets, I'd do it. Pistons, I'm going to have to say no. Another question about Zion comes from Dylan Daniels, and he was wondering who's the better player, Zion or Brandon Ingram? They play 2 different positions, so that's a hard thing to kind of gauge as well. But it really depends on what type of team you're trying to build at this moment. For most teams, I would say Brandon Ingram is a better player. There are some teams that maybe Zion would be the better player. Do I think Zion will eventually become a better player than Brandon Ingram? Probably, yeah. I think he has a higher ceiling, and I think he will likely reach a point in his career where he's better than Brandon Ingram is. But right now, Brandon Ingram is probably still the better player. One, he stayed healthier than Zion. We've seen more from him. The sample size is larger. But it's going to be close for years, and it's just cool that the Pelicans have 2 players that are, on their way to stardom that really can help their future. I think that they're in a good spot. If they get the right coach, implement the correct system. I think they got a lot of talent on that team. I think they just need to harness that, put it into a system that best works for all the players involved, and then just go for it. All right, and then AJ's World dropped another trade question. He said, is this a good trade? Pelicans get Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, pick 30, and the Heat get Drew Holiday. In theory, yeah, that's equal value, I guess. But Tyler Hero's playoff run has been really good. I'm not ready to crown him as a future perennial all-star or anything like I've been seeing crazy takes on Twitter. Let's slow down a bit. He still only averaged 13 points per game in the season, which is good for a rookie. He had a really good rookie season, but we need to pump the brakes. Let's see him do it next season. If he's at 18 points a game next year, yeah, he's probably a future all-star one day, but the NBA is loaded with talent, and, he's got to prove himself in there. But with that being said, I would not take this deal if I'm the Heat, and I would 100% take this deal if I'm the Pelicans. Getting Tyler Hero would be clutch because Tyler Hero obviously is a young, good player like I just talked about. Kendrick Nunn, another young, solid point guard. And then pick 30 and you're getting rid of Drew Holiday, who has a big contract and who probably is going to have to get paid within a few years, still probably somewhere in that like $15 to $20 million range. And I don't think you really want to do that for Drew Holiday if you're the Pelicans, so I would take this trade if I was them. For the Heat, I'm just keeping the guy on the rookie contract. And then Daniel Shaw came and asked if Donovan Mitchell can be a number one scoring option on a championship team, and I think so. I'm not going to go super into depth about it, but I think that Donovan Mitchell is a good scorer in the NBA, and I think he certainly could be the number one scoring option on a championship team, but he has to be surrounded by the right pieces that help his skill set to really get to that point of, challenging for an NBA championship. But I think he could. I think he's got the scoring ability to do that. Daniel Shaw also is wondering who I think is the best player at every position. So point guard in the NBA is going to be Steph Curry. I think when you look back at it, there's not much debate in that situation. So I'm going to say that he is for sure better than any other point guard in the league. People might argue Dame, and I think Dame is second in my book. But I have to go with Steph Curry. When healthy, he's the best. He's the best point guard in the NBA. Then when we look at the shooting guard position, I think the shooting guard position is really interesting, and it kind of depends who you fit into that shooting guard. Is Luka Doncic a shooting guard? James Harden's a shooting guard. I'm going to have to go with Harden right now, but I really think Luka Doncic could take that over next season. Luka Doncic had a historic year for his second year. He's only 20 years old or something, 19, 20, I don't know. Younger than I am, I know that. And that's just ridiculous how good he is in the NBA already. But right now, I'm going to have to say James Harden. And then Luka Doncic is a close second. For small forward, I'm going LeBron. I'm not debating about putting Kawhi Leonard in there. It's LeBron. LeBron is still the best player in the league to this day. And then when we look at the power forward position, I have to go with Giannis. Giannis and AD are the two that you could consider there. I think Giannis is a better player than Anthony Davis. I don't think it's by a huge margin, but I think I'm comfortable enough to certainly say that Giannis is better than AD. And then we look at the center position, and like I talked about earlier, Jokic, Cat type of thing. I'm of the opinion that Cat will solidify himself as a number one center in the league in the 2020-2021 season. So that's my take on that. If you guys disagree, totally, don't bash me about it because I totally understand your argument for Jokic. Do not come at me about that. Yes, those two, flip swap them right now. Next year's going to be big to decide who that is. But Joel Embiid is not in that conversation. He's just a little bit behind, in my opinion. Daniel Shaw put a bunch of questions, so I got a couple more to answer. First off, he asked, will the Bucks trade for Chris Paul? Will they? I don't know. Should they? I think they should. Obviously makes a lot of money, but I think he would fit perfectly alongside Giannis. And if he's at least 90% next year of what he was this past season, I think it's worth it. So I really think that they should try and make a push and do that. Obviously, don't completely sell your entire future for that. But if you can get him at a reasonable rate, I would totally do that if I was Milwaukee. And then Daniel Shaw also asks my favorite team of all time. And if we're talking about franchise, I'm going with the Timberwolves. And if we're talking about strictly just watching team, it would be the championship Boston Celtics with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Rondo, all those guys. That was my favorite team to watch of all time. Probably because it's the winningest team that I've closely watched. Timberwolves haven't been winners since I've been watching. But I love that Boston Celtics team. But my favorite franchise is and always will be the Minnesota Timberwolves. Unless they get moved or something. I don't know what would happen then. But let's just pray that does not happen. Then Kermit the Frog asked, if somehow Jayson Tatum requested a trade from the Boston Celtics, who should the Celtics try and get? You got to try and go get a superstar player. I really think so. Or an up-and-coming superstar player. Somebody at Jayson Tatum's caliber. I don't know who that player is. I have no idea. Good thing is Jayson Tatum's not requesting a trade anytime soon. He's going to get extended off his rookie contract and make an absolute bag. And I don't know who you could trade him for. And I know a lot of people would come calling, but you'd have to get the right deal to get Jayson Tatum out of Boston. I don't think he's requesting a trade. So this question's kind of irrelevant because I really, really don't see it happening. They're going to re-sign him to a max contract after his rookie contract is over. And then he's under contract for 5 years, 4 or 5 years with the Celtics. Like, how do you... He has no leverage in that situation to even request a trade and get out of Boston. So I just don't see it happening. I don't see there even being a reason why we have to talk about who they could get for Jayson Tatum. Another question comes from Vlogging with Adve, who dropped another question a little bit earlier in the video. And he said, who should Russell Westbrook be traded for? And I think this is an interesting one. I think it would involve maybe like a 3-team trade or something. But I could see some moving parts with like Philadelphia getting involved, maybe like Al Horford or Tobias Harris or something, maybe then Ben Simmons going somewhere or something along those lines. I don't think you're getting a star player by any means. I think you're trying to find a little bit smaller contract or a contract that's going to end sooner than Russell Westbrook's because he just makes a ton of money. They need to get rid of him, though, I think. I think that this whole experiment with the small ball stuff didn't work out, and I know that Russell Westbrook doesn't have to play in a small ball system, but I think that, him and James Harden just isn't going to work. He had a really nice end of the season, though, and we can't forget about that, but if he's going to be traded, probably for someone like an Al Horford that's on a big contract that you can try and get rid of eventually. His contract's the worst in the league. Like, it's so bad. I don't know what they can get for him. All right, and I think this is the final question, and it's from H3110 or something. I don't know. Sorry if I got that wrong, if you're listening, watching, whatever. Sorry, I don't know. Like, it looks like hello, but it's numbers and stuff. I don't know. Anyways, he asked, how can Boston get a big? This is something that I got not into it, but I had a conversation with someone on Twitter about. And really, I think the way that Boston gets a big is by trading one of their players, and that player is Kemba Walker. And that's coming from a guy who's second favorite player in the league behind John Wall. John Wall is my favorite player in the league. Kemba Walker is my second favorite player in the league, and I want the Celtics to trade him. And here's why. Do I think that they need to trade... Like, everybody wants to come out and say, trade Gordon Hayward. I don't think that's the answer. I think Gordon Hayward opens some doors with his cutting, with his ability to shoot the ball, with his ability to put the ball on the deck, and everything like that. I think he opens doors for Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, all their other options. Kemba Walker, really good point guard. Better player than Gordon Hayward. Yes. Better fit in Boston? No. He's still a ball-dominant guard that takes the ball out of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown's hands. Plus, he gets paid, a good amount of money. I don't want to talk about age because him and Hayward not that far apart in age. But, Kemba Walker could get you more in a trade than Gordon Hayward could, too. And I think that he just doesn't fit as well as Gordon Hayward. So it's kind of a win-win situation if you're trying to decide who to trade. And that would be Kemba Walker. And I think there's some options you could trade for. One thought I had the other day was trading Kemba Walker to Phoenix, and I'm sure that Phoenix would be interested. And then they would do some sort of trade where they bring in Kemba Walker and the Suns are sending out Ricky Rubio and then sign and trading Aaron Baines as the center and then getting Aaron Baines to the Celtics. Baines would be the best center on the Celtics. I think he would fit really nicely. He was already there. He knows the system. He's been there. He's done it. And now he even improved in Phoenix. You bring him back, and I think he would fit really nicely. The Ricky Rubio is just a two-way point guard, and he was always one of the best passers in the NBA. Takes care of the basketball, and he's actually a solid defender. I don't know if I already mentioned that, but two-way point guard would be huge for them. Kemba Walker is really not that. He's not a good defender. He is more of a scoring and passing point guard than he is a defender. Ricky Rubio's not taking shots away from anybody. He's finding the open man. He's creating shots for other people. He's playing solid defense, and he's just bringing, some of that true facilitating that Boston could use from the point guard spot. And then Aaron Baines just fits in nicely there. There's other ways they could do it, but I really think, or there's other players they could trade for, but I really think the way to do that is to trade away Kemba Walker. I think his value is higher than Gordon Hayward. You're going to bring in a nicer return, and I think that they're just the right center away from being a championship level team. I'm not saying a great center away. I just think they need to find the guy that fills their role the best, and I think they're there. So that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you guys for asking some of these questions. If you have other questions, I'll probably be doing this another time later on down the road, but this was a ton of fun to do. Appreciate you all dropping the questions. Sorry it took a little bit over a week to get this video out answering the questions. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. I know there's going to be some disagreements with what I said, but I do appreciate you guys for watching. Subscribe if you're new, turn on the post notifications, like the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.